Coach Jameson here again with Coach Sarah. We're going to be going over another form of decompression. It's going to be very similar, just a little bit different from our prone decompression. Now we're going to come into our supine position. So Sarah's going to be facing up and we're going to be working an active decompression from there. I want you to really pay attention and notice the similarities between both positions. There's a lot in common. There's just a couple different little cueing things we're going to get into. So I'm going to have Sarah come onto her backside now on the mat. And we're going to be thinking of that same thing like a tug of war going on between the body to try to pull length into this compressed system. So the first thing Sarah's going to do, we're going to come and bring a slight bend to the knees. As she bends the knees, she's going to find that gentle internal rotation. So I want the big toes kind of reaching in and those heels pointing out. She's now going to start pulling those toes up towards the shins, extending the heels down. To start, I'm going to have her bring her hands right onto her belly button, right where her navel is. And then she's going to come up to her head, and now we're going to work that length in the neck. I don't want you to really forcefully press the back of the head down. I just want you to gently pull the chin back, pull the throat back, pressing the back of the head. It's as if there's a string pulling the top of her bun up above her. So now we already have that active reach pulling up and the heels reaching in that opposite direction. And now we're going to start coming into those decomp breaths again. She's going to start breathing into her hands. She wants to feel her hands kind of expand with that belly. And we're going to start there for just a few deep breaths, really trying to find that expansion into the diaphragm, so those deep belly breaths. Once we get those, then we're going to start trying to pull that breath into the back space. Now with the back on the mat, we can really feel the expansion into those shoulder blades, getting the breath into the back of the rib cage and that upper back space. So again, really focus here, really try to tune in, keep the eyes closed. Again, we're working the breath from the front side into the back side, almost like a wave. Imagine breathing out through the top of the head. Even as we work this here, if you want a little bit deeper work, we can think of a little bit of a pelvic floor activation, almost like a Kegel, as we inhale and pull into that nice big decomp breath. Our goal, again, as we're breathing in, we want to think of inhaling, finding that expansion. As we exhale, try to keep that expansion and find more length into the body. One thing you really want to pay attention to here is that the low back, there is a little bit of space between the low back and the ground. We don't want to be tucking that tailbone and smashing the ground like most professions will cue us to do. We want that nice natural lumbar curve, more of that neutral state in the low back. Again, I'm going to keep readjusting, pulling those toes up. That's one thing we tend to lose. From there, I'm going to have Sarah start gently pressing the heels into the mat, just to find a little bit of activation into the hamstrings, find a little bit more of that internal rotation, so the thighs and shins rolling in, those heels are pointing out, toes are pointing in towards each other. From here, I'm going to have Sarah imagine that she's going to get a big softball or grapefruit or orange between her hands, and she's going to press her fingertips together. And she's just going to reach straight up towards the sky. This is going to help, again, find that breath into the upper back, in between the scapula, trying to find space and expansion into the back and the rib cage. She's going to slowly start lifting these hands overhead to about a 45-degree angle, and she's going to hold there. Now she has, again, the top of the head is extending up by gently pulling that chin back and pressing the back of the head into the mat. She's reaching those hands up at this angle, and you can see the length she's finding. Pull the toes up, keep reaching the heels down and gently pressing the heels into the mat. And now with this breath, what we're going to focus on is that big inhale. She's going to get that big inhale, low belly up into that upper back space. We're going to notice the ribs pop up a little bit as we exhale. We're going to think of trying to let those ribs descend down and knit in the front side of the body. She's going to find that breath again, big breath in the back side of the body. As she exhales, allowing those ribs to gently fall down towards the front side, finding a little bit of engagement towards the front side tissues. We're going to hold here for about 20 more seconds, and we're going to take this just a little bit further for our last 30 seconds. She's going to get a nice big inhale. At the bottom of her inhale, I'm going to have her pull her toes up even harder. Press her heels down enough to lift the butt off the ground just a little bit. I want the butt to just barely hover. It might not even leave the ground. I just want it to get a little bit weightless. We're going to hold now. There's going to be a lot of engagement towards those hamstrings. She's going to keep finding that internal rotation. Heels keep pressing down, toes keep pulling up, and really stay with that breath. Again, you could see having me here is very good at guiding her to keep into those cues. When you're on your own, you know, this is something that's going to take a lot of practice. The decompression breath and this decompression position is a skill. It takes time and it takes practice, as with everything else. Again, we're going to go at this for anywhere from 1 to 3 minutes, upwards of 5 minutes if you like. This last little piece of hovering the hips, anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute to start. On her last exhale here, she's going to slowly release everything. Let the legs release, let the feet release, arms are going to come down to the side, palms are going to come up to the sky. Make any sort of adjustments, again, while going through that motion or through that decomp. If you need to make any adjustments in the body, feel free to do so, whether that's in the shoulders, the hips, if we need to play around with a couple little pelvic tilts here and there, rotation of the thighs. Do what you need to do to find a nice, comfortable position. That is your supine active decompression.